What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the program. This episode is with Houston Bass. Houston is someone that I've been following for a little while via social media, those type of things. He's a filmmaker, and a very good one at that. He's done a lot of freelance work and worked in the corporate scene as well, and is back in it now. And I think he's kind of where he wants to be for the time being. But Houston's definitely has inspired me. His work ethic and his attention to detail is really cool, and you'll see that in the podcast. He taught me some things, and I'm very appreciative of that. So yeah, I guess he really just taught me to take a little more, slow down, and make sure that things look right, which is probably not true about this intro at all. But anyway, yeah, we talk about social media and the impact that has on film and photography and stuff like that, and amongst a whole host of other topics, where Houston's traveled and some of his adventures and just kind of his film making career, his creative journey, if you will, up to this point. So I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun, and definitely learned some things along the way. So I hope that you guys enjoy it. If you do, please feel free to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. I always appreciate that. Trying to get to 1,000. So yeah, if you want some stickers, hit me up. And yeah, that's all I got. Peace.
So
No, it does.
I'm going, you're going.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I will criticize Astro Motel. I've been to a lot of heavy concerts.
Yeah.
And they played at sundown one night, and I went, and dude, it was just like busted my eardrums. It was so loud.
The one thing, and I will say this about Astro, they go hard, they go heavy, and they need a sound engineer. And that's if throwing this out there, if there's any sound engineers that listen, Astro Motel, like even if you're just like getting to know yourself, practicing a little bit, like go practice for them, because those guys could use it.
Yeah.
Because they're worth it. But even like their studio mix for their album was a little heavy on the guitar. Like, because Joel's got such a great vocal, and his lyrics are so good. And the music is great too, but like it's always overpowering just a little bit.
Yeah.
Too much.
Well, I mean, and it's something that happens to me often. Like their album had come out maybe a month before I saw them, and that made me go and listen to the album.
Sure.
Which happens to me all the time
Yeah.
with live music.
Yeah.
Is, I don't know this band. I see them at a
Yeah.
festival or whatever.
Yeah.
It happens, and then okay, I'll just start to dive into them a little bit more.
We did we called them Rumo sessions, and I'm talking with the mic on my chin like I'm a professional speaker or a singer or whatever, but it's just whatever.
Yeah.
So and I do that when I talk on podcasts. I go on tangents, so I apologize.
No, I haven't had someone. They're excited about it and they're down for it, but I haven't really had anyone that's had an experience with it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So feel free. I mean, like I say, I don't have any rules with this. We're just gonna go.
I'm about it. So Astro came in to do a Rumo session, which is we were doing a video series with Russell Moore from Rumo's Barbershop. They have a Ruston campus and a West Monroe campus. We were doing it in the West Monroe campus. It was like Christmas of 2017 or right around Christmas, and they came in and man, they were great. It's some of the best video I've ever personally shot. It's sitting in my portfolio right now. It's just a good piece, and the sound is so good. And some of the songs are on their new album, but it's difficult to be all in one, whether that's a photographer, whether that's a videographer or a musician and a band. And it's hard to be in front for the audience and also behind for whatever it is. So whether behind the camera or behind the podcast or behind the guitar, if there's not someone working with you on the other side, it's hard to see what mistakes you're making and what you can do better. And so,
no doubt.
And I think we live in a time where everyone's so cautious to be critical, or people are also they don't take criticism or critique well. And so, Joe Blow nothing that you have no respect for, you barely know, will come up to you and say, guys, your guitars were really loud. Like it was like good, but it wasn't like great. You're going to take that and be like, you don't know anything about what we're doing, right? We're the professionals, you know nothing.
Yeah.
Or you're going to take that in a way that's like, cool, okay, we hear that. There's nothing we can do about it because we don't have anybody. And then a third option is to take that and to make adjustments. But unless it's somebody that you respect and you really know in the industry, like if the Foo Fighters, if Dave Grohl came up to the band and was like, guys, your guitars are really heavy and we can't hear your vocals, they're gonna be like, oh shit, we're gonna get somebody and change our mix up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So creatives in anything, whether it's photographer or it's videographer or something like that, you always need a person on one side that you trust that's looking at your stuff that can tell you whether or not you're making mistakes or you're doing something right. Even if you need just a critique to say, hey, you're doing this right, keep doing it. And that's part of my story. Part of where I'm at is that I had some friends really speak into that, which allowed me to go forward in my creative journey instead of backwards, and people that I trusted and knew that I could trust. And but because like being on the back end, doing it all your own, hustling all the time, you can get somewhere, you can get there, but you're not going to get there as fast as whole of a person. Like you're going to be like kind of torn between a bunch of different things and go from there. But wow, we got deep real quick.
No, that's
Sorry.
good. Like
I do that.
I'm in that right now. Like I'm in that searching for criticism. Like it's something that I was very open about in the beginning of this podcast, and I haven't necessarily done it in the most recent weeks. But like I know that there are the things that I can improve upon, and I don't know what they are yet. Well, I do know what they are to some degree, but there's things that other perspectives would point out as well.
Absolutely. And there are things that you can do like now, immediately, like even in the middle of this podcast. There are things that you could probably do that you can adjust now. But there are things like, okay, well, maybe you need better mics, or maybe you need a better camera, maybe like things that are going to come down the line. But if you're never building to be better, then I don't know if something like this is worth it, or if any creative endeavor is worth doing something without wanting to be better at it. And that's just my philosophy. There's a lot of different philosophies about art and the way you do things in art and stuff like that. But I'm a person that I'm a type 1 Enneagram stuff. So whoever listens to that, but I'm always going to try to be better. I've always got a little chip on my shoulder that I'm not good enough kind of thing. So because of that, like I could do a movie with Christopher Nolan, right? One of my favorite directors. I could probably DP a movie with him and still be like, I could do better. You know what I mean? That's just me. And some people are good and complacent, and that's totally fine too. But
well, speaking on that, well, let's go into your story.
Sure.
You are Houston Bass.
Yeah. Oh, hi guys.
And you grew up in Monroe?
So I grew up in Bastrop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you went to high school there?
No, so I went to a Catholic school in Bastrop called St. Joseph. It finished at 6th grade. Like my 6th grade class had 7 people in it. So we were kind of like a weird small family, and all the teachers were family, and like we would get all our work done on a Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday we'd play kickball for the rest of the week.
Okay.
Because they kind of knew that we were going to just end up, somewhere else and different down the line. And so that was a cool experience growing up in. And then I switched over to Washita Christian School in 7th grade. And from 7th grade through high school, graduated from there, and then went to ULM.
Commuted from Bastrop every day to OCS?
I do. There is a bus that drives Bastrop students from Bastrop to Monroe. And there are some brutally cold mornings and some brutally hot days on that bus.
So yeah, I've never had the privilege of riding the bus on a regular basis.
Okay.
So I can understand that. Yeah, there was probably I spent a lot of time on a bus through athletics, specifically
Sure,
soccer.
of course. Okay.
In the winter, which was
That's why
pretty
we're friends,
brutal.
because soccer.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, let's speak on that. We're kind of friends because Taylor Dawson
Yeah.
is a mutual friend who kind of led me to reach out to you.
Yeah, and I've been a very bad person in not like allowing
No.
you to be a part of things, but
No, dude. I know that's something that I realize that I'm just shooting arrows out.
sure, which is great.
Yeah, and then, like, I realize that to change my lifestyle to get into what I want to do, like, that's what's going to have to happen. Like,
Yep.
I'm going to have to get denied, and I'm going to have to get non-answers and reschedules and all that kind of stuff.
Do
and
some things on your own for a while and figure it out.
and trying to enjoy the grind is where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Definitely enjoy the grind while you can.
Yeah.
For sure. I just, you get to the point where you're so used to doing things alone and your schedules get so tight and different things like that. It's hard to bring in an intern or different people like that because they're going to have their own schedules in school and stuff. And so if you're creative out there and you're looking for a mentor and they keep turning you down or you can't make their projects work, don't get mad at them. They literally just can't make it work.
For sure. I actually I've done some filming of motocross and
sure.
I
I saw some of your work.
Yeah, go out on my own and do that, and I'm not getting paid or invited by anybody really anymore. So I had an opportunity to go out to East Texas last weekend, but I also got an opportunity to work on a movie that is trying to get into the Louisiana Film Prize.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I have no
Incredible.
idea what I'm getting myself into, but I know it'll be some kind of experience. So I was able to chase that, and I got a couple more dates lined up to film for that. So that's
great.
Exciting. Have no idea what's going on in the film, but that's what the director's for, and I'm just kind of the camera guy. So
that's the best part about working on a film set is you don't have to know what's going on to be able to do your job. A lot of people don't know that, like, when you're on a film set, every person has a specific job, usually. Specifically, like, bigger film sets. Indie film sets are a little different. You're all wearing a bunch of different hats. But if you're on a actual film set, like if you were on let's just keep saying Christopher Nolan, because Christopher Nolan is well known and he's a favorite director of mine. And if you're on one of his film sets and you're a grip. That's all you do. You just move things. If you are G&E, you're only going to do power and lighting and making sure things are correct that way. Make sure people don't blow up, electrocute themselves, or the lights go out. And if you are like an AC or whatever, like you're only going to do your job. And a lot of things like that are unionized, and which is very cool to me because it means that you can be very specialized. Whereas like when you're at a mom and pop sort of to say in a small town like this, you kind of have to do every job yourself over and over again. You have to learn everything. You have to learn your camera. You have to learn your lenses. You have to learn your lighting and your audio and all that. And so I'm glad you're getting that experience because that's great to be on a film set. Whether it's a small or big one, it's good to be on that film set.
Yeah.
But it's also good that you're grinding in different ways. And like I never got a chance to shoot motocross, so that's really cool that you're shooting motocross. Like those are some things that are really unique that I always wanted to shoot but didn't have the right ins or to know people. I mean, we didn't even have a BMX like gym in Monroe till like 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
So being able to film that is going to put you in a unique position that other people in this town didn't get. You know? Yeah,
that's a cool way to look at it, I guess. I haven't been doing so. So went to OCS.
Mm-hmm.
So you are a filmmaker, if you will. How would you describe yourself?
Yeah, I think filmmaker is a loose term these days. I'm not the filmmaker that I want to be, but I do make films in a sense. I would describe myself right now as a commercial filmmaker or video creative. Right now, I just started a position at CenturyLink, so kind of moving back over to the corporate world. But generally, the films I make are wedding films and or short commercials that you would see on TV of mom and pop places, or the occasional music capture live kind of event thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you pick up a camera? When did you gain interest in the film photography?
So to go really far back, I was a very imaginative kid. I loved Power Rangers. I wanted to be a Power Ranger. I always imagined having Power Ranger powers. so I had a lot of Power Ranger action figures, and I would always interact and do stories with them. And you'd always start off with finding your powers and then getting your powers. Then one of your team members would leave, and then they would become evil, and then you'd have to fight Megazords. And
For sure.
And I was also a kid that would do it all in his head and not do voices out loud. And for the most part, big bangs and things you have to like.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no doubt. You got to add some dramatic effect.
But like all of your dialogue and stuff used to always happen in my head. And so from then on, I became really interested in movies. I saw Jurassic Park at a real young age. Probably should not have. But it really impacted the way that I see action and things and sequences. And moving forward, it just grew my imagination. And as I was coming into high school, there was this really cool older kid that was really artistic, but he took photos, and I think I saw them on his MySpace or whatever. Like, those are really dope. Like, I want to be able to do something cool like that, because I wanted to be the cool kid that like could play music or whatever, but I'm not musically talented at all. I have really bad ears for anything. So I was like, well, I can definitely get a camera. So I asked for a camera for a birthday one year, and I got a 3 megapixel little Kodak camera.
Okay.
That took about 10 photos, and the batteries died. AA batteries. Always had to carry about 20 of them.
Wow.
Very first like digital photo kind of thing. I remember when printers were able to really print photos, that being a big thing. And so I had like a few photos like pinned up around the room, but it kind of took off and then died a little bit because I just didn't know that it was gonna be a big deal. Fast forward a couple years later, I became a little bit more interested with movies, more interested in acting specifically. I wanted to be an actor. I did community theater growing up to play off the imagination stuff. And
here at the Strauss?
No, so actually the Rose Theater in Bastrop was my home theater.
All right.
I ended up doing a competition my senior year of high school and got sent to New York to compete, kind of a Shakespeare acting thing, which was really cool. And I was part of a talent agency going into college, but what happened camera-wise, though, was I was able to get a better camera like my junior year of high school. It's in this house somewhere. I don't know if I have a shelf that's got cameras on it.
Yeah, you do have a nice collection here.
I don't think it's up there right now. It might be back here, but it was like a Fujifilm, and it was a little bit better. It took better pictures, could shoot a little bit of movie. It went up the mountain with me twice and came back down and barely made it through. I climbed a mountain in high school, as high schoolers should do.
A physical mountain?
Yeah, like a physical mountain. I climbed a
what mountain?
So we did this program called Wilderness Trek, and it is like a Christian camp, and they take you up a mountain in like 3 days, and then you come down a day, and then you whitewater raft after that. So there's a group of people from OCS that went.
Where was that at?
It was in Colorado, Salida, Colorado.
Okay.
One, I want to say it was Mount Ouray, and the other one was Copper something. One was really tall, one was less tall. The first year we did it, we didn't summit. The second year we did summit. There's videos of me on Facebook, and you can hear me just going, "This is really amazing," and then like everybody's like crying and stuff. But it was filmed on that little Fujifilm camera. So
yeah,
moving into there, I became really interested in right early college. Me and a friend, her name was Lyndon Anderson. She's now Lyndon Hatton. We just wanted to take some photos, and so I was really disappointed in my senior pictures. We went out and took some photos around town, and we loved them. Like, we loved the experience. We loved hanging out. I loved editing the photos and seeing what you could do. And from then on, literally, I was like, okay, I got to save up money to get my own camera, and I got to save up money to get some good lenses. And I was very fortunate to go to college without any debt. I was very fortunate to have a granddad who gave me some money as part of college. And so I was able to, like freshman year, get a Rebel T2i.
Yeah.
Rebel cameras will take you really far when you're starting out.
No doubt.
And from there, I got like a little nifty 50, and I got a 16 to 35. And I took that 16 to 35 to Africa, and I took that to Greece as well too. And we can talk about those trips later on if we want. But yeah. After that, I just kind of had the bug. Like I couldn't stop. It became a really big problem because I think I just burped in the mic, which was kind of gross. So I apologize. Anyways, you can edit that out or not.
Take a
Anyways, I got the bug, and it's so weird when you realize like you start unlocking potential and you wish you would have grabbed a camera or had a better camera years before.
Definitely know that feeling.
Yeah. So when I went into college, I immediately was like, I'm going to be a nurse. I need a good job, especially if I want to be an actor. I got to have something I'm going to do on the side to be, because like I said, going into college, I wanted to be an actor.
Right.
But you can't tell your grandparents you're going to go be an actor. You can't get a scholarship for being, you know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to make that happen. And plus, I was not as good of an actor as I thought I was. Looking back, I probably could have done something, but I don't know. I was an extra in 2 films, and after that, I was like, I have to make A's in class. I have to get into nursing school. Nursing school at ULM is so competitive.
Yeah.
And they only take 40 students a year at the time when we were doing it, and I just knew that, like, every minute if I wasn't studying for class to make A's, there was a potential I wasn't going to get into nursing school. And type 1, you have to be good at it. You have to be the best at it. And so, like, I missed out on a lot of good time in college to try to figure out who you are and what you want to do. Because I had my face in a book, which isn't a bad thing if that was your goal, and that was a goal of mine. But looking back, I wish it would have taken a little bit of a breather and figured it out. But as I was getting into nursing school, I started shooting portraits instead of just shooting like things in the backyard or friends or trips and stuff. People started paying me, and then I got into nursing school, and in the first semester, I was sitting in class. I was on the front row. I was editing photos, and I remember one of the girls in my class leaning over and looking at me and going, "Houston, why are you in nursing school right now?" She was like, "You're miserable. You're good at that. Go do that." They're like, "We all wish we could do that right now. Go do that." And so I kind of thought about it, and I had another good friend, Tommy Smith, who was a college minister. He was my best friend for a long time, and I would say still is my best friend. But we would have like chats in your SUV kind of after going to the movies or whatever, and just talk about life and things and where we're at. And he was
as friends should do,
as friends absolutely should do. And it's going into your 20s. That's the one thing I miss most about college, is having those sit down moments where you're like, you don't have any responsibilities the next day, so you can just sit and talk and and think about life and where it's going. And if
you look up and it's 2:30, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We did that all the time. I felt bad for his family because I stole a lot of time from their family. But anyways, he's like, Houston, he was like, you can do this. He was like, your talent is there. It's obvious. He was like, and things are happening in ways that you can't explain. Like, you can't explain how people keep coming back to ask you to take photos without you ever asking them to do that. You know what I mean? And so, and then I had another friend, Lawson Poole, who was another one of my best friends in college. He said the same thing. And after the first semester, I was a B+ student, almost an A student in nursing school. All the teachers were really expecting me to do really well. But I went in there and told them, I was like, guys, I'm done. And I had about 3 or 4 weeks left in school, and they were like, "Well, are you going to just stop now?" I was like, "No, I'm going to finish. I've got to finish GPA-wise.
Yeah.
Like, I need to keep my scholarships, my tops, whatever." And so I finished out nursing school, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done because I still had to study like I was in nursing school. And I got out, finished my communications degree in 3 semesters, and shot my first wedding in 2012 or 2013. I can't remember which one. And from then on, it was nonstop work from there till now, pretty much.
So you say you make the transition from nursing school to changing your major to communications. And you hinted at it earlier, I guess, about like your family's reaction. What was that like?
So my family took it sort of okay. My dad and stepmom were okay. They had seen what I'd been doing photo-wise, and they kind of knew My mom was a little shocked, but my mom was always shocked as any mom is. You know, she was really shocked at she was really shocked when I told her I was going to Africa, and then she was really shocked when I told her I went to Greece, and then she was really shocked when I told her I was going to go take photos for a living.
Yeah.
But I think what the best thing is that I had a plan. I knew what I wanted to do. I wasn't going and just being like, well, I don't know what I'm going to shoot. I don't know if I'm going to be a landscape or I'm going to be a portrait. I'm like, no, I'm going to go shoot weddings. I'm going to go shoot portraits. I'm going to make money. And you won't have to pay for a thing. And they did it. They didn't have to pay for college. They didn't have to. I think they were paying my car insurance, and that was it. The cell phone bill. They paid my cell phone bill until I was out of college. But other than that, I was on my own. I was already paying rent for an apartment. I was already, you know what I mean? I was making things happen before a lot of people even get the opportunity to make things happen.
Yeah.
So their reactions were well. My granddad didn't take it well because he was the one that was kind of not footing the bill for college, but also like he was giving me a lump sum every semester just to make sure that I was staying in college.
Yeah.
And
could go get Chick-fil-A every once in a while or whatever.
Yeah. Or it was like more like could go buy a camera lens whenever I needed to or something like that.
Fair enough.
So the goal was always to make films and make movies. Photography was just the easiest avenue to get there first.
Yeah.
And it's an avenue that I would say anybody should go into because it teaches you the fundamentals of a camera and teaches you composition in ways that you can build off of for cinema. It's really hard for people I know that have started in cinema and then have switched to photography because for me at least, and the reason I switched to cinema, I see things as moving in my brain. It's hard for me to picture a still image. That's why I'm not a painter. That's why I don't draw. I can't visualize still images, but I can visualize a moment happening as a scene.
Yeah.
And so it lended itself to videoing weddings a lot easier than it was to photographing weddings. Because I would get to a point where I'd want to pose somebody and I'd be like, I can't imagine this pose, but I can tell you the emotion that I want you to have. I can tell you like if you were going to walk up and it's this big kind of notebook moment and I want you to kiss and you're going to look her in the eyes and you guys are going to do this. I could do all that, but breaking it down into like a way that looks good photography wise was really hard.
I want to ask,
Go ahead.
So you mentioned like you had intention to do weddings.
Sure.
Was that something that you were looking at from a financial perspective, or was that something that you were excited to go to work and film weddings every time?
The work that I was looking at that I enjoyed the most to see was wedding work. There was a really popular photographer who was self-taught, who was doing everything on his own and was making crazy amounts of money. His business name was 3 Nails Photography. His name is Hunter Leone. He was a style that was very painterly-like, something I had never seen before, what I wanted my work to look like in the end. And so part of me being prepared and always having a plan was before I shot my first wedding, I went to one of his workshops. And he taught me the fundamentals that I still run a lot of my business stuff on today. And he kind of taught you how to be an asshole as a photographer, as a creative, but to make sure you're an asshole in a way that gets you future work because you're doing good stuff, but protects you as well. And that was something that I'm glad I learned from him because wedding days are tough. Any creative work is tough, especially if you're working with a client. And you have to have that right amount of firmness to pleasantness to also grace between everything to make it work further. And it's a equation that a lot of people can't figure out. So they either get snowballed on their work, they're either not getting paid enough, or they are not able to be creative enough because somebody else is kind of bossing over them. And he was like, you're getting paid to be at a wedding. You're getting paid to make these photos good. He said, if you have to snap at the mother of the bride, snap at the mother of the bride, and then get the work done and show her, and they're going to be happy with it. And I'm always a little bit nicer than I think he was or would have been. And
I know I've filmed a couple weddings. That's the reason I asked the question, is because I have trouble being motivated.
Okay.
To edit weddings.
Okay, so to edit, yeah, sure.
Yeah. all the weddings that I've been to, I've known the people that were in the weddings, and so that was, I was able to have fun at the wedding, and that was what they wanted, was me
Right.
to have fun at the
Right.
wedding. But it is, I always think about it as, if I'm filming motocross, like, they're gonna make another lap.
You got another chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're only walking down the aisle once, and if you're not in focus, that looks real bad.
And that's a really the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my career is when I was able to become comfortable at a wedding and comfortable in the stress. And what I realized is that I just become a different person on a wedding day. And I try to make moments that I'm excited about on a wedding day, which makes me a better person because I get happy. And when the bride looks really good and she looks bomb awesome in that wedding dress, and she's walking down this aisle and the light is coming through all pretty and sun rays and lens flares, all that kind of stuff, like, I'm going to express that excitement with them and show them, if I can, of the shot and stuff. But on the back end of all of that during a wedding day, like you're talking about editing, I struggle with editing weddings. Like, I struggle with having done somewhere between 70 and 100 weddings at this point and getting the next one out and having to do that and give up life and things like that. And there was a time when I was still really slow at editing where I didn't see my friends what felt like 2 years after getting out of college. And it took me to a point where I was like, I don't care how long it takes for me to get these weddings out. I mean, obviously I care. I have anxiety about getting these weddings out, but I'm having even more anxiety about not living life. And the hardest balance to find in any creative career is that balance between work and life. Because if it's truly something you love and it's your hobby, you're going to want to do it all the time. But if it's work, then it's got to be precedent over, over your family, over everything else, as work is for anyone. And so what happens when your work is your hobby, is your work? It's like a vicious cycle, so it can eat you alive. And I have some weddings right now that are really far behind on getting out, but it's because I know when my brain can be creative and not be tackled by anxiety now. And I'm 27 now. I graduated in 2014 from UOM, and I had shot my first wedding in 2013. So that's been 4 years of shooting straight weddings on the weekends. And there's never been a year that I haven't shot a wedding. And so it took that long to get to a point where I was like, it doesn't matter. I need to be healthy. I need to be in the best creative position. And
so now I guess you mentioned, like, you maybe you get in that zone,
mm-hmm.
and you know that you can go sit down there for 4 hours and edit a wedding. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
So actually I can't do that either. I get pretty ADD, but what I'll do is I'll edit and I'll find a moment that's really good and I'll feel accomplished about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm accomplished. Let me go fix a drink in the kitchen, or let me go check out the next movie news or watch a YouTube video or whatever. Yeah. So it pushes my edit time down the line. But when I'm a happy editor, my films become better.
Yeah.
And whenever I am a rushed editor, I would say my work's still the same, but I feel differently about the work. Because I've only had, I guess, maybe one or two unhappy clients about their films, and one client was because they didn't understand what they were getting very early on, like in 2015, because I did photo first, then switched over to video, so I wasn't as great at explaining it first. And then I think I had one bride that was just really upset at the time it took or something. I've had really good experiences in my career so far. Been lucky.
Yeah, that's cool. So I know that weddings isn't the only thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you hinting at a film that maybe you're putting together.
Yeah, so I would like to say I'm writing a film, but I've only written a scene for a film before I got busy and with other things. But I am, like, on the other side, though, I'm working on a documentary right now. The documentary is kind of chronicling this Herons on the Bayou project.
That's what I saw you hinting at the other day.
So the Herons on the Bayou project is Brooke Foy and Emery. I can't remember Emery's last name right now, but They are two public artists who have created a project to kind of span across Monroe, West Monroe, kind of a washed-up parish, and it'll hopefully expand through the rest of the state. But basically, businesses will buy and sponsor a heron, and the heron is like this 6-foot statue, and it'll go at your business and be on a map for people to find it. And what basically artists submitted designs, and those designs were chosen by the businesses, and so now the artists have painted them, and there will be a big reveal in June for that, and then they'll be installed all from June to August. So this has been the longest film I've worked on. It's been the first film where there was like no, besides a wedding day, but a wedding day has a script. This is kind of hasn't had a script. For the first time, I've been able to try to craft some kind of story out of it in the questions and the interviews, and there's been a purpose behind the project. Obviously, we want to talk about the herons, but what do our artists want to say locally about art? What do they want to say locally about people's response to seeing their art? What are they hoping for? That kind of thing. And also kind of talking about Brooke, because she's a very accomplished public artist who's done some really cool things. If you've ever seen the billboard murals in Monroe and West Monroe, she did those. She also did the seals in West Monroe that are on the in Antique Alley.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the project's going to be talking about her and Herons on the Bayou, and hopefully there's enough to talk about a little bit about art in our area and kind of what the struggle is for the artists and the funding and things, so that hopefully people will want to raise more money for the arts. I think that's the purpose on my side of the film, is to say, like, here's a cool project, support the arts. This is why it makes things better.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've seen it. I know you have too, living here. It seems like downtown Monroe, downtown West Monroe is really getting a lot of energy pumped that way, and new businesses coming in, and like a lot of good things happening there. And art being a part of that, obviously.
Yeah, you can look at the economics of any kind of town, and when the town has embraced the downtown area, especially specifically starting like about 2006, 2008 on, that area has grown and thrived and created businesses that have not just renovated the downtown, but renovated spaces outside of the downtown. And so there's a lot of people who have worked really hard to make downtown Monroe, and West Monroe for that matter, really great. The problem that we have here is that we have a river that splits two cities, and they're two small cities that should work together in more ways than one, and they kind of don't sometimes, and you always hear one side talking differently about the other. And you have people who are connected with those two sides of the city who can't really say to speak it out loud and kind of stuff. And that was one of the things that I learned while doing this documentary, is that people want to nudge or wink at a problem, but can't speak on it personally because of where they're at and who they are and what they do. And all that does is push an issue under the rug instead of being able to address it. And a lot of people feel like there's nothing to address because there's nothing that can change in this moment. And I think that's a bad way to think about it. I think that anything can change, anything can be made better. And my hope is that Monroe and West Monroe at some point, not that we'll become one city, but that we will operate at least in our mentalities together as one city.
Growing up on the other side of the river, I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's the little bit of animosity towards each city. And
and that's bred out of a lot of things. It's bred out of socioeconomic status. It's bred out of a little bit of a racist status. It's bred out of just one side thinking it's better than the other for reason. And football. Yeah, and football, which I think is fine. That's something that you can, I mean, like I went to OCS and Strongton was right down the road. We had a rivalry.
Yeah.
And I think that's healthy. That brings people to your games. Rivalry is healthy for stadiums. Like that's just how it works.
No doubt.
But what rivalry is not good for is for citizens who pay taxes who can't get the benefits of those taxes in their city because they're either being spread too far, too thin, or, I think if there was a way that the downtowns were a little bit more unified, there's more that could happen to benefit both sides. Because, Monroe has the River Walk, which is really great. West Monroe has the Antique Alley that has shops that Monroe side doesn't have, and so it's like, if there was like a way to unify plan and to unify the way that the people who are running businesses, who are opening shops, if that was planned out better, a way that was better for the customer, better for the shopper, and better for just people in town, then I think overall we would be a much more enticing destination for people to come to.
Yeah.
And that's what downtowns are right now. They are meant to be places for visitors to come and to check your town out.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of sounds like your film is doing that in the sense that showing that the arts kind of are bringing, like, I know the most recent downtown art crawl had stuff in West Monroe and in Monroe.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while now, which is beautiful. It's great. I worked for a guy, Alan Brotman, who was, and I actually worked with Brad Arnder. These two guys were some of the ones that helped create the art crawl and kick it off. And then one of my great friends, Kelsey McCrary, was like the director of things, and she had an official title, but I can't remember it. I'm also friends with Austin Bantel, who's part of it as well too. They've all wanted the same thing that I'm talking about and kind of bridging things, and so making sure that something like the gallery crawl, which is art spanning both sides of the river, is both sides are participating and both sides are getting representation, because we can't forget about the art that's on one side of the river versus the other side of the river. And even just beyond that, we can't forget about the art that's in Union Parish or West Carroll Parish or any other parish, Baton Rouge, or, which is a parish, but you know what I mean? Like, we can't forget those areas. And so the beautiful thing about the art crawl is that we bring in artists that are not necessarily from always around here. Because if we did that, it would be the same artist over and over.
Right.
But we bring in talent that's from out of state, that's in state, that's new and up and coming, mixed media, pottery, sculpture, painting. I mean, I got a painting on a wall over here was done by an artist in New Orleans, who's an up and coming artist. She's really young, and it's like X-Files. It's Fox, coming out of the water, and there's a Corvette in the background, and there's like a tower that looks like it's a spaceship. Anyways, like, I would have never gotten this piece of art had it not been for the art crawl and us bringing in art to represent from all over Louisiana.
Yeah. Big X-Files fan?
So I actually didn't grow up watching X-Files. I'm watching through X-Files right now, but I like things that are cinematic in a way that make me think. And when I look at this painting that's on the wall, it makes me see something new every time and makes me want to tell a story about that painting. So
it is very cool.
Yeah.
If I was an X-Files fan, I could
For sure.
definitely see the allure of it.
Before I realized it was X-Files, I was into it. So
I can, for sure.
In the size and scale, I mean, it's like a halfway up my wall.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Takes up a good bit of space.
Yeah.
So I know I've seen you bouncing back and forth to Atlanta.
Yep.
It looks like you're filming some food things over there.
Yeah. So while doing commercial work, solo stuff for my business, one of the clients I had roll over from another job was Atlanta. They, their company and their website is Farmstar Living, and Farmstar Living takes products and features them in recipe videos, and then gives some companies that would otherwise not have a way to market their food product a place to place ads. And so we would create content for them and hopefully tell people how to cook delicious recipes from that. That was a huge learning curve because I'd never shot food before. I had to do a lot of research to figure out the best way to light food, the best way to compositionally shoot food and things like that. And pretty soon I'll be sharing some more photos on Facebook or on Instagram about that process and that journey of things, because we started out with a very rigid kind of set and then moved in a direction that I think became more artistic, but still was able to commercially sell a product, and which was the goal.
Do you ever watch any of that kind of stuff on YouTube?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time.
You know Sam the Food Guy?
I don't know Sam the Food Guy.
Man, he's in California, and his son films it for him, and they do a great job of it. He keeps it pretty humorous. And
that's cool. I think I do know Sam the Food Guy.
Wears glasses.
Yeah. I think
always filming on a gimbal.
Yeah. So yeah, he's really cool. I watched Dennis the Prescott. He's really good. He has an Instagram channel where he was a musician who turned photographer because he started cooking a lot to save money, and then he started taking photos. And he has a cookbook now that's really cool, with really, really good recipes in it. And then I love Matty Matheson. That dude is a riot to watch.
For sure.
His food cuisine is a little bit too French Canadian for me, but his energy is dope. And then I'm friends with Corey Barr, and him and I have worked on a project or two together and had planned on working on some projects in the future. And so I love being around food. I like to eat. And filming food is just a creative challenge because you're always on the clock. You always got to time your cooking right, your food shots right, the lighting right. So it's photographing food is one of the most challenging things I've done as a creative.
That's cool. I had somewhere I was going with it and I lost it.
Okay.
So
I did. So if we want to talk about projects that I've done in work. So I did Atlanta. I was able to go on a weekend trip with Dylan Scott, who's from Bastrop, my hometown. He's really big. He's still up and coming, but I would say that he's pretty much there right now as far as his career.
I actually had one of his bus drivers on the podcast.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's awesome.
Adrian Smith. He doesn't drive his bus anymore, but he did for a small period of time.
Dylan, we kind of grew up around the same circles and friends with different people, and so he kind of knew me and saw some work and asked me to come on they do like radio shows, and they had a bus for the weekend. So I got the band tour life for a weekend, which was awesome because I've always wanted that and loved it, and did a cool project for him. And so the project I did with Corey Barr was a national campaign with Nissan trucks. It went live on their Instagram and Facebook, so seen a couple 100,000 times. When I was in when I was in early college, my internship was with Robertson's, and specifically with Rebecca Robertson, and she had the store Duck and Dressing. And so one of the very first projects I got paid for them, I created the shirt, their Monroe, West Monroe shirts, and they had them printed and they sold out for however long, and they were really great. It was cool to see them around town. Yeah. And to see people wearing your artwork is really interesting.
Sure.
And then when I finished my internship with them, I kind of came back and off and on. I'm in an episode of Duck Dynasty. That's kind of cool. I'm a sweaty mess in that episode because it was a bajillion degrees. But in those moments of work and different things, you learn a lot about yourself, what you're capable of, and learn about a lot about what you don't know and what you need to learn. Like when I worked for Duck and Dressing, I didn't know about obviously getting stuff written down on paper, but also residual pay from graphics and art stuff that you create, and didn't understand the process of legally what a company could do with your artwork and things like that, and something that I should have been taught in school but didn't get the chance to didn't learn.
I was about to say, is that something you felt like you got taken advantage of to some degree?
Yeah, not to speak of it in an ill way, because I was young, they were still talking, but things sometimes get said in a meeting that don't carry over beyond a meeting sometimes, and creating that artwork was part of it, but it all came back around because I continued to do work for them, a few other photo shoots and things like that. And, there's two types of people that you work for when you're a creative. There are people who overpay, and there are people who underpay. And you have to navigate the right way of client. You have to navigate those clients in the right ways. And there were times when Duck and Dressing may have overpaid. There were times when Duck and Dressing may have underpaid. But I enjoyed it. There was a lot of stuff, like I said, that I learned, and that's an experience that I would never have. Because I got to do cool stuff. Like I photographed Darius Rucker. Like Darius Rucker sat From Me to You, and he played Hootie and the Blowfish songs at an event that I would never have been invited to had I not photographed that event.
Yeah.
I don't know where the hell those pictures are right now. I wish I could find them. I don't think I have. I think I turned all those files over on a hard drive at the end of but dude, that was cool.
Yeah.
And you know, it's always fun to like be on an elevator with someone and they're like, where are you from? And you're like, from Louisiana. And they're like, oh my God, do you know Duck and Dressing? I mean, not Duck Dressing. Do you know Duck Dynasty? Are you friends with them? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of friends with them. I like went to school with them and I worked for them. I'm in an episode. You know what I mean? Like those are cool things that you get to say that
For sure.
despite that negative circumstance in that experience, overall look back positively.
Yeah. I mean, you may have given a little, but you gained a whole lot.
Yeah. Experience wise, for sure, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so my question came back to me. Who inspires you? It doesn't have to just be, film wise. It could be anything. Whose work or inspirational message really gets you going?
So visually right now, I really love. There's an artist in Baton Rouge. His name is Chad Schoonmaker. Schoon, maybe I'm saying his last name wrong, or maybe not. But Chad is a kind of, I guess, a mixed media artist. He does like resin and oil and paint. And the guy's eye for these patterns and colors that he does, like he just moves paint around on a canvas for a while till it feels right, it looks right for him, and it fits his theme. And I am so inspired by it because when I look at his art, that's literally just a splotch of color twisted in a different way, but maybe is glossy or whatever. Like I feel emotional about his work when I look at it, which is something that you should feel. You should feel emotions when you see good art.
Yeah.
So I like his stuff. He would be a good guy if you ever travel and do a podcast. He'd be a good guy to go talk to.
Cool.
Visually, I mean, I'm always going to be inspired by. Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg are two guys who are just at the pinnacle of their craft and what they do, visually in the way that they're able to navigate and work films and work film sets and keep things secret. I want to be J.J. Abrams. Like if I could be a director right now, it'd be J.J. Abrams for all of his mistakes and good things that he's done. He has created some of the most visually captivating pieces of contemporary film and things that like are controversial. Like The Force Awakens was a pretty controversial film, but he went on head on at that and didn't turn that project down. And then his Cloverfield series is really great. And I love his idea of secrecy and mystery box. And career-wise, if I had been able to do a little bit more film stuff, that's who I'd want to be, is J.J. Abrams. But and then there's like, I don't know. I get inspired by a bunch of different things. But I'll tell you the thing that makes me the most emotional or it makes me feel things the hardest is when I see success. And specifically, like if I'm watching a reality TV, I like to watch game shows, or I like to watch like American Idol or things like that, and or America's Got Talent. And dude, every time they hit that damn golden buzzer, I'm gonna cry. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be cats dancing to like 70s music, but somebody hits that golden buzzer, and someone realizes that their dream has been met, or their goal has been seen, or their hard work has paid off. Like that is the most rewarding thing for me to watch.
Yeah.
And the most difficult thing for me to watch, in a sense of like, I'm gonna cry. Like it doesn't matter. I mean, like people coming home from war or like whatever, and dogs seeing, lost dogs being found are always going to be emotional stuff. But
no doubt,
people wise, story wise, a golden buzzer or a golden ticket to the next round or something like that pushes me to want to be either given chances like that or to find success in a way that's rewarding as that. Well, in a sense of like, you never thought you were going to make it, or you had a dream to make it, but it was a dream. It was a grasp. You did your best. You did your hardest, and to be rewarded for that. That's what inspires me to kind of continue to move forward. And the mystery of success is something that I would like to like explore a little bit more in life, and talking with people. And like, Powerball, we all dream about winning the Powerball, but when you do, like that what happens with that success, and do you take that and do you become this thing that's really great for the people of who you are and the people around you, or do you take it and become some snob, or do you just like lose your Powerball ticket and you don't get to trade it in? Like those are all things that I think are really interesting. So the idea of someone either giving you a chance or you winning a reward or something for something you did, I think is something I'm always going to be gravitate to.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an excellent explanation as well.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah.
There's one of the films I want to work on is about a guy who wins a Powerball ticket, and to kind of see like it a la Lost, but kind of talk about his past journey and then the future journey, and kind of a story, a narrative that you kind of don't really know at what point you're in a sense. And so
Yeah.
I think that would be something so if there's any other ghostwriters that want to write with me about a project, that's something I would love to do.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah.
I guess since I'm 26, so we kind of grew up same
Yeah.
time.
You look a lot better for 26 than I did at 26.
Thank you. We have kind of watched social media evolve.
Yeah.
From you mentioned MySpace earlier, and to now to everything is literally in the palm of our hands. I mean, just since 2013, you starting to put out content. Is that something that has messed with you in any sense with Instagram? Is that obviously YouTube and Vimeo and all that kind of stuff? Is that something that you think is positive or negative, and how has it influenced you? I guess
I would say
it's a huge question.
Yeah, I would say as a whole, people being able to write whatever they want to out of the to be blunt, out of the ass crack of their brain and put online is dumb. I personally am at this point in my life, I don't like that aspect of Twitter or Facebook or any of those things, because I think the human nature is to tear people down, unfortunately, or at least the American nature is of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure other countries are the same. I mean, they're obviously the same. But I think that the best parts about social media is when you get to share things like success, like what I was talking about, or success or like something that's happened to you, like a life event, things. Those are cool to share. Social media has done a good thing in the world in saying that it's opened our eyes to people we may have never met before. Like there are people I have met on social media that I would have never met for whatever reason, and then in real life have met them and have become good friends with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've known friends who have met on social media that may have gotten married or dated or things like that. And, social media has its good points, but the best part about social media, we all know the worst part, but the best part about social media is when creative things are shared and artists are uplifted and new ideas are spread, and it opens a gateway to discovery. My favorite part about Instagram is that because it's so accessible to see new art, new creators, people doing new things. I mean, I hate it, but Instagram is kind of starting to tank because it's become the way that Facebook was, where it just becomes a marketplace for selling whatever you want to sell and being
oversaturated, maybe.
Yeah, and being inauthentic.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready for Instagram to get rid of the like count. They've already talked about it. It's probably going to happen. When that goes away, we're going to start seeing a shift in all these people who have spent their lives learning to be as fake as possible to sell a certain lifestyle, have to go out and figure out how to actually create something that's worth something more than just a photo. You know what I mean? Like I'm in marketing. I'm creative. I had dinner earlier. Now I'm burping through this podcast. So I really, really apologize for people who have misophonia and are hearing me gurgle up dinner. But anyways, I understand the purpose of having a visual space to sell things, but it's just really hard to fathom where at this point where like literally every post you're posting about is a sponsored content for Lululemon or something like that. Like when I can't blend your advertising, or I can't discern your advertising from your real life, then that's when I'm very turned off by your profile. That's when I'm very turned off by your whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And so and I think whenever Instagram gets rid of that like button, that'll be better. I think when Facebook and Twitter finally man up and start booting people that are spreading hate and misinformation, and they accept that at some point they have a responsibility for the greater good of humanity to help squash that. I think that'll get better, which it's getting better, but it could be a lot better.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, I was one of the. I remember, I'm old enough to remember tweeting. This is funny to say, tweeting by sending a text message from your phone.
Yeah, I recall that.
Yeah, I remember texting on my Razr phone, my green Razr phone, whatever our status update. It was like, at Maggie Moo's scooping ice cream at work. Come see me.
Yeah, but it was like at Houston Bass
Right.
says like
Right. Yeah.
Because I've scrolled back and then like it's like is blah blah blah.
The most grammatically incorrect thing ever.
Yeah, it's because they took out my name in front of it.
And I remember who told me about Facebook. It was my friend Hillary. She told me about this thing because she knew some older friends who were in college, and they had the Facebook.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can't get it until you have a college email. She's like, one of my friends let me log in her college email and check it out. I was like, that's really cool. You know, people in college. Like, but then it opened up and it became this different thing. And it was about social voting and who you were what, and then sharing photos. And then it was about sharing what you were doing. And then it became about what you're thinking. And then it became about who you want to be and what you think you're thinking and who you want to align yourself with. And so like, Facebook in a way is it's unnecessary to life, and I think that's how we need to start looking at it.
I've recently had a bad run-in with Rustin Rants.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, if anybody knows our area, Rustin community had a tornado. 2 people passed away.
Yeah.
It was a mother and a son. There was one other son that was left. Well, apparently the lady worked at Squire Creek Country Club, which is a very nice country club in Ruston. And
shot there many times.
Yeah, and they started a GoFundMe. Squire Creek started a GoFundMe for this son that is still alive. I believe is a senior in high school, and to help him with college. Well, the day before, Louisiana Tech had Louisiana Tech Giving Day. And over $1.2 million were given to the university.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And so one college friend of mine, I'll say, basically said, hey, you know, $1.2 million are given to the university, and this kid hasn't even had like $3,000 in this GoFundMe account.
Sure, yeah.
So all I did was share it on Rustin Rants and said, consider giving to someone less fortunate than you. That was all I said. And the first comment on it was, don't give to this GoFundMe. Give money at the high school directly. And it just spiraled out of control from there. And it was just like, man, I was just trying to spread the word, you know, and not stir up any controversy. And that's exactly what happened. And you like you said, just being able to just spray whatever is on your mind and not necessarily, you know, that's the whole I'm not saying it to your face, so I'll say whatever I want thing.
Sure, yeah.
And you know, because I been doing this podcast, I get caught up in it sometimes. You know, I start talking about something and somebody's like, well, you know, what's up with that? And I'm like, oh, crap. Well, never mind. I can't defend myself on that. We probably shouldn't talk about it kind of deal. And I don't know. I do think Facebook is kind of dying to some degree.
Yeah.
Instagram, I've seen more people throw more hate towards Instagram itself.
Right.
You know, Instagram is dying, that kind of deal. But
Instagram is the one platform I hope never dies.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion. Like, I hope that they moderate and change and move to a place where it's just about the content and not really about the post or about anything, you know, or the like numbers.
But it's interesting that you mentioned like the whole spreading hate thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar. You listen to Joe Rogan at all?
A few times. Yeah.
So Joe Rogan and Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, got on there.
Oh. Okay.
And they talked about hate speech and all that type of thing extensively. And I'm gonna just leave it kind of there because I don't want to
Sure.
go too political
Yeah.
with this,
Yeah.
but it's something that if you're not familiar with, you should check out.
I'm definitely going to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just talks about Twitter's position on it, in that they're trying to limit it to some degree, but they also have to.
It's a free speech thing.
Yeah.
But that goes back to, so I watched, speaking of Joe Rogan, I watched Alex Jones on his podcast.
The most recent one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, the person that Alex Jones was on that podcast was not Alex Jones, the Alex Jones. And so even he was like, it's a character, it's all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, you were trying to just make money.
Yeah.
And you were literally like, you probably believe some of these conspiracy theories, but he was like kind of backtracking on his whole Sandy Hook thing, and he was backtracking on a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, dude, I wanted to come through this computer and attack that dude, because like, why are you as a human being spreading so much hate and so much stuff just so you can get a buck?
Yeah.
Dude, that's dumb.
Yeah. You're stirring the spot. You're stirring the pot with a huge spoon.
Because you're playing a character, and like and so like that's the bad part about social media. And we didn't need social media to have people be fake, like people have always been fake, but the good and bad about social media, like I talk about connecting people, is that you're connected with more and more people, and you see more people, so you want to be like other people. You want to be these things. You want to have a popularity that's X number of followers and likes and things, and you'll do whatever it takes to get there. And I don't want to be one of those people that'll do whatever it takes to get to that point. There was a time when I was going to do that.
Yeah. Same here.
And I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. I guess I had aspirations for it at one point. I wasn't necessarily putting forth the effort, putting in all the hashtags and all that kind of stuff, but
I've always played the game to get followers because I want people to see my work, not necessarily because I want a certain number to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, one of my goals at one point was to be part of the staff curated on Vimeo, which would be dope. But then I realized that for me to be able to create the content that I would want to do for that would be very inauthentic of what I'm actually doing day to day, work wise, And so I just was like, it's not worth me trying to spend so much time to get a staff curated thing that may never happen. Is not necessarily going to boost my career for anything. It's cool to have on a resume, but not, you know what I mean? It's not going to pay my bills necessarily.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to do work that's going to pay my bills and work that's going to allow me to buy a decent car and have a nice house and all that kind of stuff. And when I look at like my accomplishments up to the point that I'm 27, like my bills are paid, have very little debt. The debt is in my car and my house mostly. I was able to buy a Red camera and support having a Red camera in Monroe, Louisiana. And
did you sell it?
Yeah, literally sold it today.
Oh, okay.
Like the money hit my bank account today.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm glad I'm finally rid of that finance payment.
Yeah, I saw it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or something.
And which we can talk about that if we need to. But and good decisions and bad decisions as a creative and business person. But you don't always have to, as a creative and on social media and as a person in general, you don't always have to measure your success with the success of others.
No doubt.
And it took me until like this year to really realize that, what's success for me right now? Well, success for me right now would be to be caught up on my work. So that's what I'm trying to do. And to be able to say like, cool, I'm paying my bills. I can go to the lake today because I don't have a wedding to edit, or I don't have this to edit, or I don't have extra work. And I have health insurance, so if I get cancer, like that was success to me, was to get to that point.
Yeah.
And my job at CenturyLink has been something that I've wanted for a long time, because of career-wise, like in Monroe, they're the highest paying employer, right? As a creative, that's a place I can be to make the most money, and without having to freelance. And so I've just got that job now. So now I'm at a point where I can relax, I can breathe for a minute, I can start writing, I can start planning the next stage of stuff. But I know that no matter what, like I'm still creating videos every day. Whether or not they're what I want to create, it doesn't matter. I'm still behind a camera. I'm not wiping somebody's butt in a nursing home.
Yeah, you're still practicing your craft.
Yeah,
kind of
which I've worked really hard for. So
yeah, can we talk about that a little bit? Your transition into, I guess, Was that something that you sought out? Was this new job something that you sought out, or was it?
Yeah. So my career wise has been freelance. So let's say like internship for duck and dressing, freelance for weddings. I got hired by this company called Active Media. Did a short little stint there. The best part about that was one of my friends I made, Andy Chasen, who taught me a lot about what I didn't know about filmmaking. I was this cocky son of a bitch, and he brought me back down to my level because he was like, dude, I've been filming since I was 8 years old, and he can hold a camera like the steadiest I've ever seen anyone. And like I'm not anything compared to him.
Yeah.
And he will always continue to outpace me and do better work than me, which makes me angry, but it's part of it. So anyways, I worked with him for a little bit, and then I left there. Actually, so as I think about it back, I worked right out of college while freelancing for one of my professors. That didn't go well for a multitude of reasons. And then I went to Active Media, and then I went to this company called Blue Wave, which did small commercials for Comcast Spotlight services. And so that was kind of like Simmons Sporting Goods or your mom and pop business that needed a commercial to be placed. And what was happening was the market I was in is unlike any other market that this company was in, whereas our salespeople would dictate what I was going to film versus me dictating what I'm going to film.
Right.
And so I felt really trapped in there. Would have been really good money, but I couldn't do anything more creative than I wanted to do.
Let me stop you. In those jobs, was equipment provided for you, or did you work in with your own equipment?
So Plugged In Creative was my own equipment. Active Media was their equipment. And then I was able to bring in some unique vision to stuff. There were some things that like Andy didn't know at the time that he had thought of, had looked at, but I came in with a new voice and was able to buy. So like we had one of the very first gimbals that was on the market, which was the Movi. We had the M5, and we were able to kind of introduce that into the market here. There wasn't really many commercials that had access to that, so we were able to do that then. And then moving on from there, freelancing has been all my gear. Blue Wave would have been their gear, but I had better gear at the time. I was shooting on the C100 at that time from Canon. After that, I went freelance again. I ended up at Vantage Health Plan at some point. We were shooting with their gear, which was top end, high end gear for no good reason that they have that gear, other than just to do really good stuff, which they are doing. And that's Andy. Andy's doing that work again because we kind of worked together for a lot. And yeah, and so between every job working with someone, I've been back working on my own. But I've shot weddings continuously through all of that.
Gotcha. So obviously you have a new job and you have bought this house and everything. Like you're obviously have a lot of connections in Monroe and in the area.
Hopefully a lot of good connections.
I mean, yeah. Are you plan on staying here? Do you plan on expanding elsewhere?
Yeah. So the only reason I was able to buy this house, which if people don't know this, buying a house as a freelancer is near impossible unless you just have you're like. God, I was gonna go DuckTales. Well, is it Scrooge McDuck that jumps into the vault and swims around?
Yes.
Unless you're that guy, buying a house as a freelancer is almost near impossible. So I was lucky enough to, when I bought my car, I was working for somebody. When I bought my house, I was working with Alan Brockman at Sunquest Properties. After I finished Advantage, he was gracious enough to pay me a good salary to where I was able to buy a house that I needed because I was gear was everywhere in my apartment. And my roommate Ross, who's my roommate here now, we were just like tripping over stuff. And so I knew I was going to have to move and get an office. And I could have moved my stuff to an office, but I didn't want to. I liked working from home, which is the benefit of being a freelancer. But so if you're a freelancer, word of advice, and you think that I want to buy a house in the next 3 years, go find a corporate job that you can show pay stubs for.
Yeah.
And then buy your house. And then when you're good enough to leave that job, then you can go freelance again. But don't. It's just the weird nature of the system is that despite saying, here are my tax returns, here's this, that, and the other, here's the literal amount of money I have in my bank account.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to buy a house or car without having a traditional income stream. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I bought a house about a year ago.
Nice. Congrats.
And thank you. It's kind of a nightmare. It's not really a nightmare, but it is on some days it is.
It's like good and bad. Like I've got to put a roof on my house this year. I didn't have to do that when I was renting a house. But I also didn't have any.
I've had dryer issues recently, which is a real pain in the butt.
I don't like to talk about it because I feel like I'm gonna jinx something at some point. But like, this house that I'm in right now, thank God for Ashley Matthews, who is and Pamela Petras, who are my realtors. I didn't even want to look at this house. And then they're like, we walked in and I was like, it's mine. Let's put an offer on it immediately. And because what was weird was in college, I came to this house for a pharmacy with a pharmacy student.
Okay.
A party with a pharmacy student.
Gotcha.
Pharmacy with
yeah.
Party with a pharmacy student.
Whoa.
And
black market.
Yeah. Sorry. And that's funny. Yeah, so, and then didn't realize I would ever own this house, but it's got a really big backyard. It's got this beautiful magnolia tree that everyone is very stunned when they see it, which is really cool. But it comes with its own challenges. Like the house is going to have to be, I'm going to have to learn a lot when I start renovating, just like I had to learn a lot whenever I started filming and photography, which is fine. But part of where I'm at in my career and part of who I am right now and wanting to be complacent a little bit is like I want to be comfortable enough to where I can pay to renovate my house. I can pay to renovate a bathroom or have the time to do that. When you're freelancing, unless you're just making really big chunks of money from time to time, it's hard to budget that. You always feel like there's going to be a dry spell in the future. You should always prepare for that dry spell in the future.
Yeah.
But as a freelancer, if you get sick for a month, you're not, there's not money you're going to make for a month.
Right.
And so I was at a point where I was either going to have to start really working myself to death again to prepare for that, to prepare for those dry spells, or go get a corporate job, which I was able to. Luckily, the timing worked out where as I was heading into a dry spell of work, I was able to get hired at CenturyLink. And I'm very, very grateful for my new boss, who's awesome. Very grateful for my clients who have been very patient with me through this process. And very grateful for just like the lucky blessings that kind of happen that for no good reasons are just what they are. They're blessings.
Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned earlier, like you've done some traveling and that kind of deal. So what's the coolest place you've been? Maybe a cool experience from that place?
I would say I don't know. It's a 50-50 shot. The best time I had was when I went to Africa. One of the coolest experiences was being in Greece because of all the history and stuff. So in 2011, I got to travel with North Monroe Baptist Church and their college ministry to Tanzania, Africa. And we went to a village called Bunda. And in Bunda, we taught the fundamentals of Christian living, essentially. And because all these people were Christians, these villages had sent their oldest leaders, which sometimes were just teenagers, sometimes they were like kids becoming teenagers, and some of them were adults, and they sent them to this camp to do a Bible study about like what communion means and what does it mean to be pure and holy, and what does it mean to wait till marriage and all that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting because I had never thought about how difficult it would be to go from an American culture to teach an African culture, Tanzanian culture specifically, village culture even more specifically, about waiting for marriage to have sex.
Okay.
Just think about the implications of, number one, talking through a translator, and then number two, how awkward that is face to face talking about that. Now staying in front of a bunch of people who look different than you, speak different than you, have lived a life entirely different from yours.
Yeah.
And
so, from what I can gather, that was something that you were taught at a relatively early age.
Yeah, of course.
All those things that you were mentioning, communion and all that kind
Bible
of stuff.
Belt, all that kind of stuff, like, of course, and going to Christian schools my entire life. Like, it's what I knew and grew up in, and, for better for worse, for what it is. But so we did that, and then we were able to go on a safari afterwards. And so we spent 2 days. We drove like 3 hours from Bunda to outside of Mwanza, but basically the Serengeti. So we went to the Serengeti, and we stayed basically with like Pride Rock from The Lion King.
Okay.
Like we drove up and we were all singing The Lion King, and as we're driving out, we're in this this like Land Cruiser, Land Rover kind of thing. And the top opens up and you can stand up and you can look out.
Yeah.
And it's made for safaris. And anyways, we were driving out there and we're like bouncing up and down, and like we would see a wildebeest. We'd be like, stop, 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 and the driver would be like, that's nothing, just wait. And we'd be like, no, but we've never seen this animal before. Like, what is this? And he'd be like, it's a wildebeest. Let's go. And so like we would continue out, and then the animals get bigger and different and more diverse, and you see new things, and the landscape is so different. And I mean, like, you feel like you're in the movie The Lion King, which is a movie that I grew up watching and love dearly. And so we get to the Pride Rock and we check into the hotel, and the lady at the front desk goes, okay, I have one rule. Don't open your windows. Don't open our windows. Like, why are we not going to open? Okay. She's like, monkeys. And we're like, monkeys? She said, yeah, monkeys, very dangerous. Don't open your windows. And we go, okay. So then you go into your room. It's like not kind of cabana kind of thing. Looks really nice. And it's got these slated glass windows. And you look through the window and it's a big baboon ass is sitting right up against your window. And you're like, oh, dude. And those baboons, I mean, their teeth are huge.
Oh, man.
They're mean looking. It's like they will, hide your kids, hide your wife, because they're going to steal everything. And like, never in my life have I ever wanted to like obey rules more than being there. But then like when you would walk to the restaurant, you had to walk out in the open, and you're like, am I going to get like crow hopped by a monkey at some point?
Yeah.
And so anyways, we get up at dawn the next day and we drive out and we see cheetahs in the trees, and we see lions, and you can go to my Facebook and there's like 6 albums from Tanzania photos. And as amazing as all those were, the most amazing part about Tanzania or Africa in general is just how hospitable and welcoming the people are there. And they may have nothing. They literally have nothing. They have a handful of rice to feed their family, but they're going to give you as much as you want out of that handful of rice. And those people, you can't take a bad, like Andy Chasen just went to Kenya. He's in Kenya right now as we're doing this podcast. And like, I'm so jealous because when you go there, you can't take a bad picture of an African person because they're all smiles. Yeah. They're going to want to see the back of the camera because maybe they don't have a mirror to see themselves. So they might see themselves for the first time in the back of your camera. Wow. Like, that was an experience I'll never forget. Yeah. And there's actually a painting in my dining room that's from Mwanza, and it was really cool. The next trip that had the most impact was I went to Athens, Greece with the BCM college ministry at ULM, and we were able to go work with refugees, and it was kind of an exploratory trip for the BCM. They didn't really
When was this?
This was 2012, so the year after Tanzania. They didn't really know what they were getting themselves into as far as like where we were doing, what kind of work we'd be doing with people. And so we went and we were able to hear some really interesting stories and teach English as a second language. But it kind of became a vacation trip just because everything we did really fast and got done with our work really, really quickly. So growing up, my dad worked a lot, shift work. So he'd be asleep during the day and or work at night and vice versa. So I remember very fondly sitting in the living room watching the Travel Channel and seeing these people go to places like Athens and go to these theme parks and all this kind of stuff. And always in history books, I was always gravitated to Greek culture or Egyptian culture. And, the Parthenon and the pyramids are two things you grow up seeing, but you never realize that how accessible it is to get there and actually be a part of it. And, you hear about Mars Hill and in the Bible and the book of Acts and Corinthians and I got to be there. And so standing there in a moment where, like, as a child in Bastrop, Louisiana, one of the smallest towns, barely a dot on the map, and seeing these things in history and being like, I want to go there one day. I wonder if I'll ever actually get to go there. And somehow, some way I was able to raise the money and be in a place that allowed me to go at a time when I didn't have a bunch of responsibilities to worry about was the most freeing experience. And so, if anyone in college is listening right now, like if someone says, let's go out of the country, you go out of the country.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. I mean, anything really. If somebody says, "Hey, let's go to skiing in Colorado," or let's go to California, take as many road trips and trips period as possible.
Even if it's just like a new experience in maybe a town, like if you're going to go to the lake. Like one time, I had some friends who were like, "Let's go wakeboard," and I was like, "I've never wakeboarded before." Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when there's new experiences in life and you have an opportunity to go do it, just say yes.
For sure. Oh man,
Did we just
died? That's never happened before.
That's okay. We went long-winded. It's okay. I can help you out. Hang on. Hopefully it wrote.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm gonna pause your camera real fast.
Yeah, please. All right. Yeah, pause.
Back from that unscheduled break.
Yes.
Intermission.
Yeah.
This is the Avengers Endgame of podcast right now.
That's going to be way over. Well, I don't know. People friends with you watching this maybe know what they're talking about.
So anyways.
Yeah, Greece.
Being there in an experience that you had only ever dreamed about is, I mean, I can't describe that any other way. And then also getting an experience that you never thought you'd do either. Like we went to an island off of Greece called Zakynthos, and we were there, and it was the only children's ministry in Greece, maybe in that area. And so we were able to work with them to help the guy get his camp ready for kids to come to his camp. And we did so much work. We finished all the work in like 3 hours, and we're like, let's do more. And he was like, I literally have nothing else for you to do. Like we can't paint, we can't whatever. So we went to the beach and went and swam in the blue waters. We took a trip around the island. Like we did, there's a, if you see pictures of Greece and Greek islands, there's a very famous shipwreck in a cove. And it's featured in a lot of different things. A huge cliff. Yeah. Been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Famous base jumping Instagram video.
Oh, yeah. We didn't do that, but that would have been awesome. We actually, I wanted to, we were in Corinth. We went over to Corinth to see where, like, the Church of Corinthians was and the ruins and stuff, and they had, like, a bungee jump excursion, and I was like, let's go bungee jumping, and our BCM director was like, you cannot. I was like, what do you mean I can't? Like, I'm in Greece. I want to go bungee jumping. She's like, I can't liably let you do that. I'm like, this is dumb. I was like, so then that was like, from then on, it was like, go travel to do cool things. And, places I still want to go. I still have a hope that one day things will be gentle enough to be able to go to Egypt. I still want to just, like I said, have that experience of seeing something I've seen in textbooks my entire life and to stand in front of it and to touch it and to, in some way. That would be awesome. I want to, Australia and New Zealand is a big thing on my list, but when I go, it'll be a 2-week trip. It won't be something quick. You know what I mean? It'll be something that I can actually like take a few days and relax and feel like I'm part of the culture there.
Yeah, for sure. Take a day to get used to jet lag and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to do Hawaii next year, which will be awesome. Be the first time I've been to Hawaii. I took a surfing lesson in California. California is one of my favorite places to go. I find that I'm, despite how hot it is, I really like the desert and the desert people and culture and that kind of stuff. And, California, I don't know, it's just the people who live there seem to be real comfortable with themselves and things that are happening, and specifically depending where you go. But
for sure,
I love San Diego. I love Dodger Stadium's really cool. I really like that area. And LA is just a lot that happens there, and so it's cool to be in the center of it, even though you can't really navigate LA because LA is all traffic. It's just interesting. It's a good feeling to be there. But then you go to the coastal cities and you're like, this is the life that I wish I could live my entire life. Wake up, go to the beach, go surf, go home, whatever. One day, if I win the Powerball, I will be on the coast.
Okay. Have you gotten to explore like Pacific Northwest?
So I actually get to go to Seattle in June for my job. So the best part about CenturyLink right now is that our team gets to travel a good bit. So like I'll be going to Denver area Monday actually after this podcast. It's May right now, so at a certain point in May I'll be in Denver, Broomfield.
It'll be up tomorrow. So.
Oh sweet, yeah. And if we ever finish this podcast,
yeah, I'll be up late tonight. But
so I'll be able to go to Denver, and then I'll go to Utah. That's one thing I do want to talk to you about and tell you that was really awesome. But so I'll be in Utah, and then I'll be in Seattle, at the Seahawks Stadium for a project, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And so I get to still do things. Those are all work trips, and mostly we'll be there for work, but it's still cool to be able to leave Monroe and have somebody else pay for it, which is always the benefit. So,
No doubt.
Travel when you can, especially when other people pay for it.
For sure. No doubt.
You know.
Do you want to talk about Utah?
Oh yeah. So last summer I got to be a part of a project that I would have never guessed I would have been part of. So the way this happened was this guy named Ben was a connection through some people here in Monroe, and he was like, "Hey dude, I need help editing this footage from this project I shot." So he had this Alexa mini footage from a documentary he was working on, and so I met him at a coffee shop, and I was like, "Oh yeah, dude, you're just doing this thing wrong. Like that's it." I was like, "And once your hard drive is faster, you'll be able to edit faster." He's like, "Dude, that's crazy. I've never used Premiere, yada yada yada." Yeah, he's like, "I'm gonna hook you up. I have this thing going on. If I can get you on, I'll get you on." So a couple months later, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing this time in June, whatever?" And I was like, "Well, I'm working for this guy, but I was like, if it's work, you guys can pay him, and I can just go work. You know what I mean? Like, as long as it evens out, it's fine." He was like, "Yeah, man. So, basically, it's this show called Rock the Park, and it's about these two guys who go and they tour national parks, and they do like different excursions in the parks and talk about nature conservation and stuff like that. It's won an Emmy, a daytime Emmy award. It airs on Saturdays on ABC, I think.
I've watched a couple episodes.
Actually, really, yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I got to go work, and I was very underprepared. I got to go be a PA, which basically meant I hauled batteries around.
Okay.
And and so I hadn't climbed a mountain since high school, and I have put on a lot of weight just from being an editor and sitting in a chair for a lot. And so I went and got my ass kicked by these guys. I mean, like literally ass kicked. But I was able to be in places that I'd never been before, like an area of Colorado that was like so beautiful and picturesque and like kind of taken out of time. And then so we did Ouray, Colorado, and then we did the Great Sand Dunes of Colorado, and then we did Moab, Utah, and then back to what was the last place they ended up in? Glacier or something. I can't remember the last name of it. So, but going into Utah, into Moab, Utah, which is another place that you see on travel things and different things, you know, being in the canyons, sleeping in the back country of Moab, Utah, which not many people get to do. They don't give permits for that.
Yeah.
So like being out there, literally you can't see any city lights. It's just stars and your tent. And you are hanging out with this crew of people who all kind of do what you do. They carry cameras and shoot things, and they love nature. They love the easy life, and that's really awesome. And so got to do that, and I came back with this whole new experience of like, you know, the freedom. At that point, I'd actually just lost my job after I had booked that. My position with Alan ended, and at SunQuest Properties doing corporate work for them, commercial stuff, and so I was able to do that and kind of be able to realize like freelance is great when you get to do freelance things like this. But after that, I was like, it's time for me to slow down, and so that was a really great experience. But I would like. Loved every minute of it. I wish I could go back and work on that show more, because they get to go scuba diving and they get to go, you know, climb mountains and things like that. And those are the things that like nobody told me were possible with a camera. Nobody told me it was possible to be good enough that you weren't just taking pictures or photos of somebody, that you could take a camera and film something that, number one, is good career-wise, is number two, good for people to watch, and number three is has meaning behind it. I mean, that show is there to bring awareness to these parks, bring awareness to nature conservation and all kinds of things. And the two guys that are the hosts of the show are just awesome. They're really good guys. So
all things that I heavily stand behind.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up there.
Yeah, dude.
Houston, I really appreciate it.
Dan, it was a pleasure, man. Whenever you need a sequel, another really long-winded podcast, I will talk about anything
Awesome. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. And well, we had to pause earlier, but I know that we could keep this going on multiple topics. So I really enjoyed it.
I'm going to try to not eat dinner before the next time we do this and not try to burp and gross people out the whole time.
For sure.
So part of getting older and being stressed out all the time.
No doubt.
It's being burpy.
Well, cool. Appreciate you coming on,
yeah, dude,
and
absolutely.
hopefully we'll catch up with you down the road.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.